So for the next 2 weeks in history, we are going to study about Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson, as you guys probably already know, it was a very remarkable man and maybe one of the most important figures in American history, and maybe even one of the most important men in modern history of the world, because he had a lot of contributions that was not just to the United States, but to the world. And so this week we're going to study about his early life before he became president, and then we're also going to look at a few things that highlighted his first half of his presidency. Next week we'll kind of look at the other half of his presidency, and study some more things about that. But this week, in addition to his early life, we are going to look at, in particular, his involvement with what's called the Louisiana Purchase, in which the United States purchased all of this land right here that's highlighted in orange from Napoleon. All of this land belonged to France in the early days of America, and as you guys have been studying Napoleon, he's been busy in Europe trying to be emperor and trying to take over Europe. And so at some point, the world of Napoleon intersected with the world of Thomas Jefferson, and their paths crossed, and Jefferson bought all of this land. Well, he didn't buy it, but he was the president when the United States bought the land from Napoleon. And we're going to talk about that, because that was a tremendous opportunity that the United States had to buy this land and really expand the size of the United States, and you can really see how really the United States almost doubled in size after they bought this land. But after Jefferson was able to, as president, buy this land for the United States, he then sent Lewis and Clark out on exploration through all of this land to explore the Louisiana Purchase, and then also eventually find a way to get to the Pacific Ocean. And that was a great adventure, and took 3 years, and we're going to kind of look at that too this week. And Thomas Jefferson was the one who sent Lewis and Clark out on that expedition, that adventure. And so Jefferson had great vision and for exploration, and so he was the mind behind all of that, and so that was also an important thing. But Thomas Jefferson is probably best remembered as being one of the America's greatest presidents. And so here he is. Here's a painting of Thomas Jefferson, and he's looking very presidential in this painting, but he was more than just a president, and we're going to learn that this week. One of the things we're going to talk about was how he was an author. So he wrote documents and books and other things, and one of the most important things he wrote, as an example, was the Declaration of Independence. I think you guys probably remember when you studied about the beginning of America last year, how the Declaration of Independence is probably the most important document in the history of America. It declared our independence from England, and established America as its own country, as its own nation. And Thomas Jefferson was the primary author of the Declaration of Independence, and many other documents as well. But the Declaration of Independence also set forth and wrote down some rights that we all now believe that every human being has, and that was given to them by God, and can't be taken away by any other person. And it was Thomas Jefferson who kind of first wrote those down in the Declaration of Independence. And so now that document now not only stands as a cornerstone of our country, but also really as a message of hope for other countries who don't have governments that treat them with respect and treat them good. The Declaration of Independence is a document that other people can look to, maybe as hope for a better day. So Thomas Jefferson definitely has contributed to the world in a really positive way that way. But he wasn't just a president or an author, but another thing that he was very good at for his time was he was an architect. He designed many buildings, and I'm not sure where he had all the time to do this, but he designed many buildings, and then this is an example of one of the buildings he designed, which actually was his home, which is called Monticello, and you can go visit this mansion in Virginia if you ever travel there. You can go to the home of Thomas Jefferson. He designed that. He architected that home, and he also architected buildings on the University of Virginia. He architected the building that's the Virginia State Capitol, and many other buildings. So he was an accomplished architect, well known for his time as an architect. This was all before he became president. Um, but Thomas Jefferson also had lots of interest in art and in music, and he was always trying to encourage Americans to embrace the arts and embrace music. And he himself played violin and performed at many concerts, played classical music pieces of his day with other people, and so he was a musician as well. For his time period, the violin was kind of like the guitar. He was kind of it was the rock star kind of instrument. Now we kind of think of the violin as an orchestra piece, but back then it was one of the most important musical instruments you could really play. I mean, if you played violin, then lots of people liked you, sort of like playing guitar these days. So Thomas Jefferson was kind of hip that way. He also, but in addition to music, he liked all forms of art, and he was really he played an important role in getting one of the most famous French sculptors to come to America and create a sculpture of George Washington, so that the country can honor the father of the country, George Washington. So here's a picture of the sculpture that this famous French sculptor made of George Washington, and you can see this in Washington D.C. if you ever go to Washington D.C., and you can see the sculpted piece of George Washington. And then Thomas Jefferson was the man who kind of helped make that happen. He got the sculptor to come over from France to do that piece. So Thomas Jefferson was always trying to bring more art and music to America in his early days. But it didn't stop there. He was also an inventor. He invented a number of things, and one of the things he invented was what's called this lap desk. So before there were laptops and lap desks and iPads and all of those things, Thomas Jefferson had the idea to invent a little desk that could sit on his lap, and he could sit wherever he wanted to and do his work. And so he would sit there and he could write his documents right here, and all of his pens and ink and feather pens were right there where he could reach and get them, and so he could write his documents while he sat in his favorite chair by the window and looked out, or even take it with him in a carriage ride into to another town, and so he'd be able to work wherever he was. So he was an inventor of many things. And one last thing I'll just kind of bring up. It seems like a small thing, but Thomas Jefferson was the guy who first came up with the idea on how we write down how much money we have. So, for example, if you have $1.46, we all know that you write that by saying 1.46, and maybe you put the little dollar sign in front of it. But it was Thomas Jefferson's idea to write down money this way. So $1 and then .46 was the cents that you would have. And so he was the one who came up with the idea to, hey, let's write our money like this. And that seems like a small thing, but if you go to the store and you see the cash register ring up how much you owe, it's gonna be written like that. And all businesses and banks and you and me and everybody else, if we have to write down how much money we have, this is the way we write it down. And that was Thomas Jefferson's idea in the very early days of America, when we were first when America was first making its own money. This is how Thomas Jefferson had the idea to, let's write how much money we have down in this way, using this rule of using the dollar dot cents. So small thing, but you can see how that has changed and affected our whole world on how we write down money. So again, Thomas Jefferson, very remarkable man, full of ideas, full of doing things and helping the world and the country around him become better. And he did that in many different ways, and we're going to look at that this week.